She cannot read the manual. She has never seen a circuit diagram. And in 6 months, she will build and repair the solar system that powers her entire village. Her name might be Sita or Naughty or Rafia. She is a grandmother from a village with no electricity, and she is, by any formal measure, illiterate. That should be a disqualification. It turns out to be the whole point. Tonight, I want to answer a single, stubborn question. Why would you hand the future of rural clean energy not to engineers, not to young men with degrees, but to grandmothers who cannot read? To understand the answer, you first have to understand why the obvious solutions kept failing. Across the developing world, roughly 700 million people still live without reliable electricity. For decades, the plan was simple: build the grid outward until it reaches everyone. But the grid is expensive, and it stops where the profit stops. For a village of a few hundred people, up a dirt track, 3 days from the nearest town, the lines simply never arrive. So the aid model tried a different route: parachute in the technology, ship the solar panels, send an outside engineer to install them. And it worked until it broke. A loose connection, a dead battery, a blown regulator. The engineer was long gone, back in the city. No one in the village knew how to fix it. Within a year or two, the panels became roof decoration. Millions in equipment quietly dying in the sun. The failure was never the technology. It was the missing person, someone who lived there, stayed there, and could keep the lights on for years. In 1972, a young Indian man named Sanjit Roy, everyone calls him Bunker, had already begun asking a different question in the desert of Rajasthan. He had a degree from one of India's elite universities. He chose instead to dig wells for a living and to build something he called the Barefoot College. The idea behind it was almost heretical, that the poor already hold the knowledge to solve their own problems, and that a certificate on a wall proves very little about competence. At Tylonia, there are no formal degrees, no professors in the usual sense. A person who can do the work teaches the next person to do the work. That is the whole credential. By the 2000s, Roy turned this philosophy on the exact problem that kept defeating everyone else, keeping rural solar alive. And here he made his most counterintuitive choice. He decided not to train the young men. The logic was brutal and clear. Train a young man, give him a marketable skill, and he leaves for a wage in the city, and he rarely comes back. Your investment walks out of the village. A grandmother does not leave. Her roots are the village, her children, her land, her standing in the community. Teach her, and the skill stays exactly where it is needed, for decades. So Barefoot College began recruiting the least likely engineers on Earth. Middle-aged and older women, many illiterate, most of whom had never left their home region, brought to a desert campus for 6 months. Which raises the obvious problem. How do you teach solar electronics to someone who cannot read a single word of the textbook and who does not even speak your language? Because the women come from everywhere, from Mali and Malawi, from Afghanistan, from remote Pacific islands. In one classroom, you might have 5 languages and no shared words at all, so the college threw out words entirely. The teaching is done in color, in repetition, and in sign language invented on the spot. Every component is color-coded. This wire is red. It goes to the red terminal. This resistor has these bands. It sits in this marked slot. The circuit board becomes a puzzle you solve by matching, not by reading. An instructor gestures. The student copies. She does it again and again until her hands know the sequence better than any written instruction could hold it. They learn to assemble solar lanterns and home lighting systems, to wire charge controllers, to diagnose a fault, swap a part, and bring a dead system back to life. 6 months in, they can build the whole thing from bare parts. Not operate it, build it, from the board up, and repair anything that fails. One of them, Rafia, came from a village in the Jordanian desert. She arrived unable to read, having never left her country. She left a certified solar engineer and went home to electrify a community. And this is the part that makes the whole model work. She does not just install and leave. She lives there. When something breaks in 3 years, she's a 5-minute walk away. Multiply that by the thousands. India's government helped fund the international program, flying women in from country after country, sending each one home as a village permanent power engineer. The tally now: solar power brought to over 1,300 villages across more than 90 countries, roughly 700,000 homes, lit many by women the world had written off. And the light is only the visible part. A lit home means a child can study after dark. It means a health worker can see at night. It means hours no longer spent walking for kerosene and lungs no longer filling with its smoke. So back to our question. Why the grandmothers? Because the hardest part of rural power was never generating the electricity. It was keeping it alive forever, in a place the outside world forgets. Barefoot College didn't invent a better panel. It solved the human problem everyone else engineered around by trusting the one person guaranteed to stay. It is a small, sharp lesson with a very large reach. The most durable technology is the kind owned and maintained by the people who need it and expertise. It turns out, was never about the certificate. If you want to see how the color-coded method actually works, and follow one of these solar grandmothers from her village to Tylonia and back, the full breakdown is in the link below. It is worth your time.